It started with a gust of wind slicing down Fifth Avenue, bitter and sharp like the rest of January in New York City. Elena had been crouched against the rusting heat grate outside a closed luggage store, a threadbare army coat wrapped tight around her frame. She hadn't eaten in nearly 2 days, and her fingers ached like glass beneath her skin. People passed her like shadows, some with pity in their eyes, others too consumed by their own world to notice her at all. She didn't blame them. The city moved fast, it always had. She was invisible now, a part of the concrete and grime, unworthy of pause or recognition, until the man in the charcoal coat stopped. He didn't kneel, didn't speak right away. He just stood there, a silhouette carved out of expense and power. His shoes gleamed under the streetlight. She noticed them first, then his eyes, cold but calculating, the kind of blue that suggested danger more than comfort. He looked at her like a puzzle, not a person. She hated that look, but it had been a long time since anyone had looked at her at all. "What's your name?" he asked, voice even, unaffected. She squinted. "Why, you lost a bet." He didn't smile, but something shifted in his face. Approval, amusement. "I'm offering you a job," he said, as casually as someone might offer a cup of coffee. 1 year, clean clothes, a roof, food. A significant paycheck at the end, all legal, all discreet, but you'll have to pretend to be my fiancé. Elena laughed, a dry, cracked sound that came from disbelief more than humor. What kind of rich man fantasy is this? He pulled out a business card and held it between 2 fingers like it was a loaded weapon. "Not a fantasy, a necessity. You'd be doing me a favor. I'll compensate you more than fairly." She didn't take the card at first, didn't want to. But her stomach twisted again, and her pride wasn't worth dying over. 3 days later, she walked into his high-rise penthouse with borrowed clothes and shampooed hair. She still didn't believe it. No one hires a homeless woman off the street unless they want something darker. But his lawyer was there. There were contracts, non-disclosure agreements, a list of expectations, a schedule. She would live with him, attend events, act as if they were deeply in love. Publicly, they'd be the perfect couple. Privately, they'd remain strangers, no touching, no intimacy. No questions, his name was Rhys Carrington, 35 years old, tech empire billionaire, reclusive, powerful, and meticulously controlled. His reputation had been spotless until the board of his company started pushing for more stability in his image. They wanted a softer, human side. A woman by his side, someone warm, engaging, the kind of presence that reassured investors that Rhys wasn't a machine. He tried dating, briefly. He tried PR-managed relationships with models and actresses, but none of them lasted more than a month. They wanted the spotlight. Rhys wanted silence. So he looked outside the system, found someone with no connections, no media history, no real past, someone who could disappear again when it was all over. Elena became Elena Grant overnight. A stylist, a speech coach, a nutritionist, even a private acting mentor were brought in like a pit crew. They transformed her. Soft curls replaced her matted hair. Her cracked lips were glossed and shaped. She wore custom gowns and diamonds on loan. In public, she sparkled. In private, she still slept with a knife under her pillow. Their chemistry was strange, tense, precise, like dance partners forced into sync. Rhys never touched her, never lingered. He was polite but distant, a storm behind glass. She didn't trust him, but she couldn't deny that he kept his word. She had her own bedroom. She had food, clothes. Autonomy to a point. Events came fast. Galas, dinners, art shows. They smiled for cameras, whispered secrets with their eyes. Elena played her part so well the tabloids fell in love with her. They called her a Cinderella story. A woman from nowhere who'd captured the heart of America's coldest billionaire. But behind the scenes, things started to blur. He would sit with her at night, asking about books she liked. She'd make sarcastic remarks and he'd chuckle, not a full laugh, but enough to make her pause. He started drinking tea the way she did. She noticed his hand shake once, barely. Panic. Or something else one night after a gala where she wore a red silk dress and he whispered that she looked like a war worth losing. They rode home in silence. She could feel the air change. He looked at her longer than usual, said nothing. Later, as she curled up with a blanket in the meteor room, he appeared again. "I lost someone," he said suddenly, leaning against the doorframe. She looked up. "What, my sister? Years ago, she was like you, sharp, brash, never bent to anyone. She died because I made a mistake. I've never let anyone close since." Elena didn't move. She just watched him, realizing for the first time that the man behind the billion-dollar empire was deeply, endlessly alone. "I'm not her," she said softly. "I know," he replied. "But sometimes I wish you were." After that night, things began to shift. He started asking her opinion before public events. She started staying up later to talk with him. They discussed politics, books, space travel, death. One night she fell asleep next to him on the couch and woke up with a blanket tucked around her. He had never crossed the line, not once. But the space between them shrank. Half a year in, he invited her to a family estate in Maine for the summer. It was quiet, private, no cameras. There they cooked meals together, barefoot in the kitchen. They argued over music. She dared him to jump into the freezing lake at midnight, and he did it without flinching. She watched him emerge from the water with his perfect face laughing like a boy. That was the first night she wondered if she was still pretending. One morning, she found him painting in the attic. He never told anyone he painted. It was abstract, broken colors, jagged lines. He didn't look at her when he said, "I wish you'd never agreed to this." "Why?" "Because I don't want it to end." And yet, time didn't care. As the final month approached, the air between them thickened. Publicly, they were flawless, but privately, they became ghosts. He pulled away. She didn't chase. Their contract had a countdown, and every shared glance became more painful. At the final charity gala of the year, Elena wore a black dress with diamond straps. Cameras flashed like fireworks. Rhys held her hand tighter than usual. She looked up at him and knew he wouldn't say it, couldn't, but he felt it too. On the ride home, she finally asked, "What happens now?" He didn't answer, just stared out the window. When they returned to the penthouse, she packed her things slowly. It was silent. He didn't stop her. She signed the last contract papers and left the check untouched on the counter. At the elevator, she turned. "You didn't have to fall in love with me." He looked broken. "You weren't supposed to become real." She left. 3 months passed. Elena found a small apartment in Brooklyn using savings she had earned before life unraveled. She took a job at a bookstore. She dyed her hair back to brown. No one recognized her now. She was no longer Elena Grant, just Elena again, simpler, softer, still healing, but every night she thought of him. The lake, the paintings, the silence that felt like comfort. She wondered if he'd moved on. Probably. People like him didn't wait. Then one evening in early autumn, as the leaves turned like fire across the city, she stepped out of her building and saw a car idling at the curb. The same car, same driver, and Rhys leaning against the door in a navy coat. He looked different, tired, but real. "What are you doing here?" she asked, heart thudding. "I'm rewriting the ending," he said simply. She crossed her arms. "The contract ended. I'm not here with contracts. I'm here as a man who made the mistake of falling for someone pretending to love him and never got the chance to find out if it could have been real." She didn't speak. Her chest felt tight. The wind swept through the street like it had the day they met. "I'm not offering money," he said. "I'm not asking for a performance. I'm asking for one chance, one night, just as us." She stepped forward, slow, cautious, then closer. She stared into the eyes that had once looked through her, then past her, then finally at her. She searched his face for a lie. There was none. "Just one night," she whispered. He nodded, and she smiled. "One night," she said. "But if I kiss you, I'm not pretending." The final scene faded as the city swelled around them, headlights slicing through the dark, as Elena stepped into his arms and Rhys, for the first time without cameras, without contracts, kissed her like he had waited a lifetime. And maybe, just maybe, he had.